everybody, welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all the different books I've read since May. It's been a hot minute since I updated you on what I've been reading, so I'm just going to go through my books, the reviews, how many stars I gave them, and all the good stuff. So I read all of these books on my Kindle. So because it's on my Kindle, I don't have the physical copy. So I'm gonna put a little cover photo right here so you can see what the cover of the book looks like in case you want to read it. So to start, I read Bye Baby by Carla Lovering, and I gave this 4 stars. I read it based off of my friend's recommendation. I did a TBR video on it where my friend picked the book and she picked Bye Baby, and I gave it, like I said, I gave it 4 stars. It was good. It was very hard to read at certain points. There are some like trigger warnings, like SA, stuff like that. But it was a good book overall. However, I would not rate it a thriller because it didn't give me those thriller vibes. It was more of a following a friendship, but it still had some creepy aspects, but I wouldn't label it as a thriller like Elisa Jewell or whatever. Like, to the part where I tried to skim over it because it was so hard to read. And by hard to read, I just mean the trigger stuff. This trigger stuff that you don't want to read about, like essay and stuff like that. And that's why I knocked it down a star, just because that was a pretty intense part of the book. All right, the next one I read is Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. Hope I'm saying that right, by Anne Napolitano. And this book was our book club book for the month of June, and it was good. I gave it 4 stars. However, there are some like really weird aspects in that book. If you've read it and you know what I'm talking about, like I cannot believe the story took that turn. But I read it really quickly, and it's a pretty chunky book, so I was surprised I read it as quick as I did, and so that tells me that I enjoyed it, so I gave it 4 stars. The next one I read was Alice Feeney, Rock, Paper, Scissors. This book I gave 5 stars, and I have my little Goodreads, like what I wrote after I read my review, and it says, I did not see those twists coming at the end. That's my reason for 5 stars, with the mind blown emoji. My jaw dropped at one point while reading, and I remember exactly the part it dropped, and I was like, oh, what is going on? So Rock, Paper, Scissors was my first 5 star of June. Then I read Where Butterflies Wander by Suzanne Redfern. And this book was on Kindle Unlimited. I was just scrolling through Kindle Unlimited. I wanted a lighter read compared to the Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I was just searching for a book. Found this on Kindle Unlimited, had never heard it before. Thought I'd give it a try. Oh my gosh, it was 5 stars. It was such a good, wholesome story. My review says, such a heartwarming story. It is beautifully written. I flew through this book. The chapters are from each character, which I enjoyed, and are very short. So I really enjoyed Where Butterflies Wander, so I highly recommend that one. That was my second 5 star of June. Next book was The Summer House by James Patterson, and I read this because my mother-in-law read it, and she raved about it. She gave it 5 stars, and I said, you know what, let me try. So I started reading it, and I was on my Kindle obviously, and I was reading along, and then I was like, okay, how many pages am I in right now? It was 100, so I said, okay, let me see how much time I have left on the book. 11 hours, and I said, what? Because I already wasn't really connecting with it, but I was 100 pages in, so I was like, at this point, I can't just like give up. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna keep going. Turns out it's a 600-page book. So if you want a chunky one, The Summer House by James Patterson, I gave it 4 stars. The reason why I gave it 4 stars is because it's very, very, very detailed. So it knocked a star off for me because I like kind of surface level. I don't want to say surface level because I do like some character depth. However, this was too much information I did not care about. It would tell me like the position of the detective in the certain police department. It was just stuff that I didn't feel was necessary. but it also followed like 6 different characters. And sometimes you'd be reading and then you'd be like, wait, who is this? What? And it was just very, like, you had to really, really focus with this book. So if you want a book where you have to focus and you want a nice mystery, but you also want to have a chunky read, that's the one for you. The next one I read, was Do Not Disturb by Frida McFadden. I gave this 4 stars. I did not see this twist coming, and this story is kind of like a spin-off of Psycho, the American like popular film, where I believe it's American. Anyways, and it was so good. 4 stars. The reason why I didn't give it 5 is because it's Frida McFadden. You know, some things are just like a little not realistic, if you get what I'm saying. But I did not see the twist coming, so I gave it 4 stars. Okay, the next one was Just the Nicest Couple by Mary, I always want to say Kombucha, and that is not her last name, Mary Kubica? Anyways, Just the Nicest Couple. And I gave it 3.5 because I have my review. I said, I can't put my finger on this book. I feel like I'm giving it 3.5. I did appreciate how the author portrayed teachers in the school setting. I felt like that was very realistic, very true. But I don't know if it was the Kindle version or what, but there were a lot of writing errors in this book. And it seemed to like drag on at times where I was like, okay, get to it, let's go. I didn't see the twist at the end, which is why I rated it higher than a 2. But I did fly through it, so I'm like, if I flew through it, I enjoyed it because it wasn't like I was forcing myself to read it. So I gave it 3.5. Was it the best thriller I've ever read? No. Would I recommend it? It was just a decent read, I'll say that. The next one I read is The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. And this one I gave 4 stars. This one was really quick to read, really easy to read. The writing just like flew. The writing just flowed for me. I just kept going and kept going and kept going. I didn't give it 5 stars because it wasn't like a blow me away type book. I know some people have. For me, it just wasn't like, oh my God, wow. And like, that's how I have to be to give 5 stars. But it was 4 stars. I'd recommend it. It was good. And it's a really easy read, I think. I read was nonfiction, and it's called Small Habits Revolution, 10 Steps to Transforming Your Life Through the Power of Many Habits by Damon Zaharides. And I gave it 4 stars. It's a great little book to learn about habits. It talks about certain aspects to have for your habits, like to have I believe he called it what did he call it? Like a trigger, but in a positive way. So if your habit is to go to bed earlier, and let's say you watch an episode of something, when that episode ends, that's your trigger of, hey, start your habit, keep going. If you want the habit of walking in the morning and you are tagging it on something that you already do. So that was another big thing, is tagging your new habit onto something you already do. And so let's say that you read every morning. Okay, well, once you do your reading, that's your trigger of, oh, my reading's done. Now it's time to go walk outside. So I did appreciate like the certain little tips that he gave. And I'd recommend it if you're looking to read a book about habits. The next one was our July book club book. I picked this one, and it was Swiped by L.M. Chilton. Honestly, the cover alone just made me want to read it. It's just such a cute, cool cover, I think, and I love the colors. And so this one I gave 3 stars. It was decent. Like, it kept me going, but at the same time, it was like so messy, so all over the place. It was written, not that this, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't mean it the way it comes out, but it was written by a man, and you could tell. Like, there were certain things that like went on in the dating or like what the woman thought that he wrote, and it was just like, come on, that's not what a girl would say. Or it would be like, come on, like, that's not realistic. Or it was just very messy. I know one of my friends gave it 5 stars, so it really just depends on what you think, and that's why I love reading and sharing it with others, is everyone has a different opinion. But I personally, and my friend in my book club, we both were like 3 stars. Like, it was good, but it was very messy, just kind of like all over the place, but we did agree it would be a good movie. This one we read was The Perfect Couple, and this was Emily's pick for August, and this one I gave 4 stars. I'm gonna tell you why. Well, I said I gave it 3.5 or 4, but I changed it to 4 because I found myself like thinking back to it every now and then. But the ending really disappointed me. Like, the ending, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this in a vlog from our last like book club get together, but the ending, I felt like I was just like, I read all that and that's what I got. Like, it just didn't work for me. But then also, there was so much cheating in this book. So much cheating, and I have a very hard time reading about that. Like, if it's one character, I get it, you got to put some drama in there, but this was like 3 to 4, and I was just like, enough cheating. Can we not just love our spouses and move on? Like, it was just a lot of cheating for me, so that's why I knocked it down a star 2. The next book I read was another nonfiction book, and this is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and I gave this 5 stars. I felt like it was a really, not inspiring, but influential book, and it talked about how to just make better connections, and talked about like using people's names when you speak to them. And I'm somebody who is, if I don't hear your name well the first time, I kind of just go, oh, okay, I didn't really hear that, but I would feel bad being like, oh, I'm sorry, what was your name? But that's something I should be doing, because then like you really remember their name, and like he says that people's names are like so special to them because it's who they, you know, it's a part of who they are, and it just talks about how to make those connections. And with going into my new career transition, I just wanted to continue growing professionally, and so I felt like this was a great way to make my way into like sales, relationship building, that type of thing. So it was good. I would recommend it. I did the 10 pages a day to finish it, and I felt like that was a really good way to break it up. And yeah, it was interesting. A few times I was like, because it would give like some history stories, and I was just not into that. But I mean, it's a nonfiction read, so it's not going to be Freedom McFadden. It's not going to be like action packed. But I did enjoy it, and I felt like I learned from it. The next one I read was The Patience List by James Cain, and I gave it 4 stars because I read it way quicker than I thought I would, and I was hooked from page 1. Like, it just automatically took off. It lacks in character development, and the outlook on the therapist's mental health is a little wonky. It's a little like stereotypical, like not put in the best light. But if you're in a reading slump and you need a good thriller and you need something to get through and you need something to be like, yes, I finished it and add it to my Goodreads yearly challenge, The Patient List was good. And the last book that I have read is The Keeper of Happy Endings. This was my book club pick for, what month are we in now? September? Yes. And this is by Barbara Davis, and it's a historical fiction book. I don't want to say I love reading about World War II because that was such a hard time for people, but I do enjoy learning about that point in time. And so this is based in World War II, but then it's also based in like the 80s in America. So it goes between 2 women. And I just realized I'm only now explaining how to win friends and influence people in this one and not the other ones. So apologies about that. I will add in little snippets of what it's about if you want to hold or pause and read the description. But The Keeper of Happy Endings was following two women, and it was just a really heartwarming story. I gave it 5 stars, and the last line gave me chills, and I felt like, okay, that's a good sign. Like, I physically got chills when I read the last line. And then but some of it was far-fetched. Like, some of it was like, okay, that would never happen in real life, or that's a little far-fetched. Like, that's a little, I don't think that would happen in my life, but it's fiction, so you can have fun with it. You can do whatever you want as the author. So, oh,